Hi there and welcome to PhD at Living. When my wife and I signed up for our baby registry on Amazon, we started getting targeted free stuff sent to us. This time we got 3 different types of infant formula. Me being me, I took a look at some of the claims on there and thought, how are these any different? And how does one cause less colic? Does that mean the other ones cause more colic? Who would want more colic? What the heck are these human milk oligosaccharides and why are they so important? What the hell is 2'-FL? For that matter, what the hell is anything in infant formula? And for that matter, what the hell is anything in actual milk? As you well know by now, for those answers and more, so much more, come on in. Per usual, this is a pretty beefy topic, so I'm going to break it up into 2 parts. The first, we're going to talk about all natural breast milk, and don't be a perv about it. Second video, we're going to talk about infant formula. So with that, let's talk about big ol' science. There are 4 major categories that make up the ingredients of breast milk: sugars or carbs, proteins, fat/fatty acids, and minerals. I'd love if I could make a helpful mnemonic out of CPFM, but I got nothing. Anyway, there are also a number of very important things in breast milk: macrophages, antibodies, etc. But unfortunately, they're at a small enough concentration, and oh, by the way, they're biology. We're not really going to discuss them. Keep in mind that the majority of breast milk, almost 90%, is just water. Of the remaining 13%, 7% is lactose, 4% is fat, and 1% is protein. Yes, I know it doesn't add up to 100%. Remember those minerals and minor constituents? Yeah. Carbohydrates. The most predominant carbohydrate in breast milk is lactose. This disaccharide here composed of a monosaccharide unit of galactose and one of glucose. If you want a whole lot more info on the sugar thingies, I got a video for that. The other saccharides in breast milk fall into a broad category called human milk oligosaccharides, or HMOs. The oligosaccharide part just means that it's a sugar composed of X number of monosaccharide units. The HMOs in breast milk range from 3 to 14 sugar units, and they're composed of some combination of 5 different monosaccharides: glucose, galactose, fucose, N-acetylglucosamine, and N-acetylneurominic acid. While any of the HMOs can have a combination of the 5 monosaccharide units, every single one of them has a terminal lactose, that is, beta-1,4-galactose glucose unit on the end. Which brings us to the fancy HMO touted on all the formula containers, 2'-FL. That sounds like a fancy abbreviation, but it's really a fairly simple molecule. This trisaccharide shown here, 2'-fucosyl lactose, 2'-FL. 2'-FL is basically just a lactose, shown here, but with an additional unit tacked onto the 2 position of the galactose in the lactose unit. That additional unit is fucose, this guy shown here. It's different from how I drew it before because that was the cyclic form and this is the linear form. Fucose is basically a galactose, but it's missing the hydroxy on the 6 carbon over here. An interesting thing about fucose is the chirality of the sugar is L, whereas the majority of other biological sugars, the chirality is D. I haven't drawn any chirality here because I'm lazy, so you'll just have to trust me. Sidebar: I think the structure on the 2'-FL Wikipedia page is backwards because there's no way I can start with lactose and make the molecule as presented. I think what happened is they switched the fucose and the glucose units and they ended up making a 1,4-galactose fucose and a 1,2-galactose glucose linkage instead of the other way around. At any rate, the 2'-FL makes up about 1/3 of all HMOs in breast milk, and it serves an important function. 2'-FL acts as a decoy in the intestinal tract of babies because it binds to pathogens like Listeria and Salmonella instead of allowing those bad things to bind to the intestinal wall. BOUS. Protein! The proteins in breast milk can be broken into 2 categories: casein and whey. Casein and whey are both very large and possible to draw proteins, so I'm not even going to try. That being said, for the purposes of our application, the big thing is that casein solidifies in the stomach, whereas whey stays a liquid the entire way through the gastrointestinal tract. This means that casein can present some digestion problems for babies and make them pretty unhappy. Importantly, for a human, the ratio of casein to whey goes from about 20 casein, 80 whey, almost up to 50-50 depending on what stage in the lactation the baby is feeding. On the flip side, for cows, the ratio of casein to whey is pretty much the reverse, 80% casein to 20% whey. Compared to breast milk, infant formulas generally have more casein in them, so they can be harder to digest than mother's own milk. Fats and fatty acids. The main fatty acids in breast milk are these two shown here, oleic acid and palmitic acid. Palmitic acid is a saturated acid, meaning there are no double bonds anywhere, aside from obviously the acid carbonyl. That's why these 14 methyl groups are just condensed, because they just kind of snake their way on out. With the oleic acid, however, there is a cis double bond here at the 9-carbon position, which gives the molecule kind of a kink. Both of these fatty acids usually present as a triglyceride, that is, as an ester product with glycerin. Glycerin, as we know, is a 3-carbon 3-hydroxy small molecule, and we have our favorite water lasso mechanism. Knowing if we can identify water, we just circle our H2O, pick it out, and then tack on our acid group to the glycerin, and that gives us our triglyceride. Interestingly, in the triglyceride, the oleic acid is usually top and bottom, and the palmitic acid is in the middle. When you think about it, though, it kind of makes sense, because if you put that oleic right in the middle, that kink from the cis double bond is kind of just sticking out somewhere, and it's probably going to sterically smack into one of its neighbors. Whereas with the palmitic acid, everything is nice and straight, no double bonds, so it squeezes in the middle much more easily. Cool, huh? In addition to the fatty acid triglycerides, linoleic and alpha-linolenic acid, watch the extra N here, are also found in low concentrations in breast milk. Linoleic and alpha-linolenic acids are essential fatty acids, meaning the body needs them but can't produce them on its own. They're both 18-carbon carboxylic acids with 2 double bonds, the big difference being the alpha-linolenic acid has a 3rd double bond at the 15-carbon position. It also happens to be 1, 2, 3 carbons away from the end of the chain opposite the carboxylic acid group, meaning linoleic acid is an omega-3 acid. Linoleic acid, as it turns out, has the double bond 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 carbons away from the end opposite the carboxylic group, meaning linoleic acid is an omega-6 acid. In the body, the linoleic acid is converted to this fatty acid here, arachidonic acid. In a process with an enzyme called elongase 5, the linoleic acid not only gains 2 carbons to become the 20-carbon arachidonic acid, but it gets 2 more double bonds, and the double bonds at the 9 and 12 carbons move to the 8 and 11 positions. I'm not a good enough biochemist to figure this one out, and in the 15 minutes I spent looking on Google, I couldn't find the answer, so you're just going to have to deal with that explanation. If you thought the linoleic to arachidonic acid mechanism was fun, you're really going to love this one. The alpha-linolenic acid goes from 18 carbons to 20 carbons with icosapentaenoic acid, and then gets 2 more carbons to become the 22-carbon, ridiculous-looking docosahexaenoic acid, DHA. Again, I have no idea how all these carbons are tacked on. This thing took me 10 minutes to draw, and if you want the answer, feel free to watch our sister channel with our resident PhD biochemist. Oh, that's right, we don't have one! Both AA and DHA keep babies healthy and are good for things and stuff. Damn it, Jim, I'm a chemist, not a pediatrician! Minerals. The minerals in breast milk include things like sodium, potassium, calcium, magnesium, phosphorus, and chlorine. Presumably these are all in some sort of an ionic form, maybe not the phosphorus, but that's not very interesting. I'm sure it's important and stuff, but I don't care. Finally, let's touch on 2 things that aren't found in breast milk, vitamin D and vitamin K. Both of these are important for babies, so supplementation of each is needed. This is vitamin D3, also known as cholecalciferol. I don't really have much to say about this, aside from double ring structure here is kind of cool, and hey, wouldn't you know it? Conjugated double bond system. A deficiency in cholecalciferol can lead to bone mineralization deficiencies such as rickets, so make sure you get your babies outside because vitamin D3 is the vitamin D that your skin makes when exposed to sunlight. And this is vitamin K1, also known as phytomenadione. As another shameless self-promotion plug for more of my videos, vitamin K1 was first synthesized in a lab by napalm inventor Louis Pfizer. This is not as interesting as napalm. Anyway, vitamin K1 treats and prevents hemorrhagic disorder of the newborn, which is probably as bad as it sounds, so also get vitamin K1 for baby. Final big huge flashing disclaimer, I'm not a medical professional, I'm just some guy on YouTube. Please check out the sources of information in the description of these videos, read some peer-reviewed scientific literature, and make up your own mind. Remember folks, that's what a PhD at living is all about. That being said, I feel good about how I represented the molecules and relevant chemistries involved here, but again, I have no idea how any of that would react in your body or your baby's body, so please, make your own decisions. And that, my friends, is a crash course in the chemistry of breast milk. Next time we're going to talk about infant formula, but that's for then and this is for now. See you next time. It's so damn hot! Milk was a bad choice.